Welcome to the Rebuild Procurement Podcast, the number one procurement podcast in the world, where we dive deep into topics to keep procurement people up to date and ahead of their peers. Subscribe on YouTube, whether or not you like this, wherever you're at. So not just YouTube, Apple, Spotify, go click them all. Today, Alan, doing another of how it's sourced. Today, going into golf balls. So you have the PGA, it's nice, it's spring, it's going into summer, so everyone's enjoying golf that likes golf and the people that don't want to know more. So today, this is where we're going. I am Tom Finn, bringing 15 years on the client side procurement, finance, and category management experience in large and small cap orgs.
And I'm Alan Veek, a procurement geek on the sell side of the street, and I've assembled a team of superhuman, that's positively superhuman procurement professionals doing managed services at a company that we call Summit.
All right. Now, to tee this up, so we have sort of
Use the pun.
Sometimes I think they just sit in the back of my brain. Don't even know they're coming forward. There's probably another forward to be had. But we'll go through. First part is going to be a little history, Alan, about the golf ball itself, which it is a thing of evolution. So evolution, rules, and just general changes over time, and folks just want to hit the damn thing hard and far. And then you'll dive into the sourcing strategy, sort of just how it's laid out from a sourcing perspective, the materials and the how it's sourced. And on the back end, we'll sort of put ourselves in the seats of a category manager at, say, Titleist or one of these larger companies.
I love that. And why are we talking about this topic right now, Tom? Not just because it's the PGA and it's spring, and we're talking about it because Father's Day is nearly upon us. What gift does a father get? Well, a father might get a tie. A father might
maybe
get a
bow
sleeve
tie.
of golf balls. Yeah, might get a dozen golf balls though. And when it's Father's Day, it's also going to be the U.S. Open weekend. So the U.S. Open is upon us this week.
It is, and additionally, more close to home. So my father, who fortunately is still around, he's always been wanting to get good at golf. So he joined like a smaller kind of club thing, like last year. Didn't even get out. Then this year he's doing it more, and me and my sisters bought him lessons. So just pushed final purchase on that yesterday.
That's under the head. Not to call your dad an old dog, but never too old to learn new tricks.
No, he'll be happy with another 5 yards, I think, is where my dad's at. He's just like he's playing with some guys that are similar in age to him, but like better. So he's like, out of nowhere, he's never been a person to wear like much of like any symbols or brands or anything. Then out of nowhere, he comes up with like a nicer hat, right? He's got like the new golf shoes. I heard he went to go look at some clubs, So one thing that'll be important as far as like hitting it far is the golf ball itself. So maybe we dive into the history piece first, which goes back quite far. So to the 1400s, Alan, there were the primitive beginnings of golf. And
in Scotland.
I don't know if you looked at it, yes, but do you know the first substance they used in golf balls? What was a golf ball?
Yeah, I'm going to guess that it was probably wood.
It was wood. It was wood.
Wood.
And then what can you carve in your backyard? So initially it was dense hardwoods like beech and boxwood, and they weren't so accurate, and their flight time was limited to like 75 yards. So, I mean, some people could just do it in their backyards nowadays, but with that wood golf ball, but it was hand carved by carpenters. And because if you think they're hand carving it with a knife, could be the sharpest thing in the world, could be the best carpenter in the world, it's hard to get it exactly symmetrical, right? That round, crisp ball. So that not only the fact that it was wood, but it was that spherical, inability to make it spherical, which limited its flight and overall accuracy. Because a lot of the way a golf ball flies through the air is just by being so perfect. And I heard some stories that we'll get into about some of those manufacturers and the QA on the back end here. But so the second one, so that went, call it for roughly 250 years. And then came about the hairy ball. So this hairy ball, in air quotes or in quotes as I've seen, was
I
from
don't know
about
why I'm laughing.
16 called 1500 to about 1600, and this was hand sewn leather pouches filled with either cow's hair or straw. So yeah, so an interesting substance, but it changed. If you think about the wooden ball going 75 yards, this thing was able to carry about 140.
That's
Um,
amazing.
yeah, but if you think of just it being this leather pouch with some hair inside of it or some hay or straw inside of it, water damage. If it was a rainy day, there goes the ball. So it was eventually called the common ball and was initially it was from the Netherlands, Scottish with Scottish leather. Um, and people would just produce it on their own, just like the wooden one. Um, but
It
then
would be
came,
fun. We should be able to like source these balls today because it'd be fun to go out and hit a wood. Like I would have guessed that a hardwood wooden ball would carry further than this little light, soft, leathery pouch of straw. It'd be fun to hit them, just
yeah.
see what they feel like.
Well, this feathery one, I didn't see so much about the construction of it, but the feathery kind of made it a little more understanding why it might carry. So this one went
Okay.
from 1600 to about 1850. I'm sure I don't know how accurate these dates are, but call it for another like 250 years. Um, so this was meticulously constructed. It was made with cowhide, so like leather, call it, or horsehide pouch, with boiled goose or chicken feathers. So my thoughts are, and this would go about 190 yards. So what would happen is you would have this pouch, and then you would soak these things all up, and then they would expand, right? And essentially, fast forward more to today, where you have this like just compressed something inside a golf ball. That was essentially what this feathery was doing. It had that leather pouch that would hold it nice and tight,
Interesting.
but then have, I'm assuming, some bounce for the thing to go 190 yards. That's made out of
Yeah.
goose and chicken feathers inside a pouch. Like that had to be compact,
Yeah.
and it was quite expensive. So two funny thing. I guess not funny, but it cost like from in today's dollars, it'd be about $10 to $20 for a golf ball. Even though sometimes I feel like they
Oof.
might cost that much.
Yeah.
I tend to lose more than I should, but it would only last about 2 rounds. So
Mm.
this was the rich person's golf ball at the time, and I'm sure that they took good care and didn't hit it out of bounds too often. Probably for only folks that
Yeah.
got to a certain level of playing. So that was the rich man's ball, uh, and then go into one that was more of a common ball via cost, and this was made out of, it was called the Gutta Persia, which was ended up being nicknamed the Gutty. So that's a type of tree,
Buddy.
and it was the Malaysian sapodilla tree, which is the Gutta Persia, and what it would be from the sap of that tree that you could heat up and shape into spherical mold. So just think of it like a rubber, right? I mean, I think rubber
Yeah.
essentially is
Right.
some version of like a
Pretty much
sap,
same
right?
thing.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
it was
Yeah.
kind of done like figure on like in like your own pot versus something more of a industrial scale. But it was essentially that like homemade rubber inside like actually it was just the ball. That was the ball. So this Gutty revolutionized golf, and then it made it cheaper and more mass produced, as well as durable. And you think of something's like a earlier version of rubber is water resistant versus some of those earlier ones with the hay and the hair inside of it.
Yeah.
And you could also remold it when it got damaged. So if you hit it and it started, getting more compact, then you can kind of remold it. And over time, they actually realized that this Gutty, the more you hit it, the further it would go. And my
Mm.
assumption is it would probably get a little more compact, right? If it's like smacking this thing all the time, that it would
Yes.
just change the structure a little bit and become a little more resilient. So this
Very
actually
cool.
came from the quick background of how this was invented. It was this person. He became a Reverend Doctor Robert Adams Patterson. He was credited. This was 1848, and he was going to school at St. Andrews. So he was Scottish. He went to St. Andrews for school, and he didn't have much money, but a lot of folks would play golf there. So he made his own ball. He didn't have the money for the feathery, $10 to $20 in today's money. So he created his own more affordable ball, and then things took off from there.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
I wonder if some of the like the greater flight length for the Gutty in addition to the compression factor you mentioned, I wonder if it's also because it started to develop some of those dimples. When did those dimples show up?
So hold that thought.
Hold that
Hold
thought.
that thought, Alan,
Okay.
because it does become important. Um,
Mm-hmm.
it comes so before the dimples, it was the Haskell ball. So this is kind of where modern day, call it modern day companies come into play. Uh, but there was this solid rubber core, which is tightly round with a rubber thread encased in a cover, and it was initially using some of that gutta percha around it, and then eventually they moved towards some other materials. But this was born. It was a buddy. It was two buddies that were playing golf together. One that was playing crappy, and then leaned on his other buddy for some help. So Haskell is this gentleman, forget his first name, but I think it was Corbin Haskell. He was playing with his buddy that worked at BF Goodrich. So they were
Tire
playing this other guy. His last name was Work. So they were playing together. He had a bad round, went home, was fiddling on the back porch. It was one of those kinds of stories, right? And because
Yes,
his buddy
yes.
worked at BF Goodrich, he was a superintendent there. He took his idea to his friend, and uh, out came that ball. So it was just this. It was more of like a rubber core ball. It's actually probably what a lot of us
Right.
think is probably inside a golf ball. Is that
Yes.
like
Yes.
just like a rubber ball inside an encasement? But this is the first go at something like that, and it became popular, actually immediate success once Walter Travis won the 1901 U.S. Amateurs using this ball. Um,
Hmm.
so, and you see that a lot today with everybody wants their club, wants their ball, wants their this, wants their hat to be on the best players. They want it to be on Scotty or whomever it is at the time, right? The Tiger with Nike.
Right on.
Because then that just demonstrates you relay greatness with that person than with their equipment. So that's what happened with
Mhm.
the Haskell ball there. Um,
Cool.
and then because they were using this was similarly over time some like dimples would form, I believe, on this Haskell. So the Haskell actually had raised, call it raised dimples, right? Like it was
Okay.
little bumps that popped up around it.
Yeah.
Similar,
Yeah.
I think I don't know if the one in what's that Disney sphere? You know that giant golf ball at one of the Disney parks,
Oh, Epcot.
Epcot. Doesn't it have raised dimples on that?
Yeah. Well, maybe
No,
it's a whole different thing. That's
no, that's a
Buckminster
golf
Fuller.
ball, Alan. I
Yeah.
refuse to hear
Okay,
anything
that's good.
else.
I like it. I'm with you.
Okay. For just that's what the Haskell looked like, right? If it has raised dimples, I could be totally wrong. Maybe they're indents. But the science dimples came into play when folks started just realizing, some designers discovered that these dimples were better than, I guess, what was called pimples. I'm calling them bumps, but pimples
Yeah.
that are put on the earlier balls. And this came about the early 1900s and maybe closer to the 1930s. Um, that they had this essentially, it was the way it went through air was better, reduced drag, increased lift.
Yeah.
So then the modern dimple pattern has anywhere from 300 to 500 dimples. That's what the standard
Amazing.
is.
Yeah.
Um,
Well,
and
this is one of my favorite. Do you ever watch the MythBusters show?
yeah,
When
I
it was on
did
Discovery.
before. Yeah, haven't in a while.
Yeah. Yeah. And
I
I
think
don't
they're
know if you
still
remember
at it
that
though, those
episode.
guys.
Well, at least the next generation is.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it was one of my favorite episodes. The one where they said, "Are dimples really more aerodynamic?" And then they fashioned the whole the a whole car, kind of the surface of a car with dimples
Oh, no way.
to match roughly the size of a dimple on a golf ball. And they took the car before they put the dimples on it, down the road, measured all kinds of crazy metrics around efficiency and gas efficiency and aerodynamics, and then they took the golf ball styled car down the road, and it was like 20% more aerodynamic. It was
No
nuts.
way.
Way.
How interesting, huh?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, maybe
Yes.
that's
So
Tesla's next model, right? Like
yeah, you never
the
know.
dimpled
Yeah,
model,
you're worried
whatever.
about, you
Z.
live in Texas, you're worried about hail destroying the look of your car. Well, just have the hail imprint put in there already.
Yeah.
Just have it
Oh, it's
dimpled already.
coming. Yeah, park it outside.
Yeah. More aerodynamic.
Get it
Save
out
on
of the
gas.
garage. I guess, yeah, you're still gonna be worried about the windshields, maybe, but yeah, cover
Yeah,
up the
yeah, that's
windshields.
right.
Yeah,
Uh,
stick the rest of the car there. Um, that's fascinating, and what a cool experiment. But yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
they understood that back in the 1930s. That's when they started doing that. Um, and then in the 60s is when this, maybe it's the kind of more I was referencing, this solid core where you have that white piece on the outside, right? That like that hard piece that you're
Yeah.
hitting. That's
Cover.
yeah, at least the time it was Serlin from DuPont was the
Right on.
one that made that resin. Um,
Still is.
yeah. And then inside they had this rubber core with
Yep.
that Serling cover. So that would have the dimple marks on it that was brought in. And this was actually the notable inventor here was Jim Barsh. It was 1967 for this
Wow.
synthetic solid core ball here. So um, yeah, I mean, it offered like it just got better, right? Offered less spin, you control around the greens, just more general accuracy, and the overall, it's always trying to improve. Like the ball itself is always trying to improve the performance of the golfer. So folks, they'll buy the feathery because whatever it lands softer or whatever it may be, or you can hit
Right.
it harder. A lot of this comes into how far can I hit it, and then once you get
Hmm.
closer, how nice does it play? Um,
Yep.
and today now they went from that synthetic solid core where it's essentially two pieces, and then starting in the 90s there's these multi-layer balls, so I think go anywhere from like
That's
have
right.
like 5 layers to the darn thing, just different
Yep.
covers, different, and it's all kind of about feel and distance and all these other things. So that's where it's at today. With these, it's a highly scientific process. They've used a lot of QA. I think they inspect like 100% of the balls or something like that on QA. So, but yeah,
Amazing.
it's pretty pretty awesome. Some of this evolution that's
Yeah.
taken place over time.
And it sounds like so you kind of finished the timeline in like the mid 1960s, 1970s. That's when the modern golf ball really established itself. So what we're hitting today kind of had its form in the late 60s, early 70s.
Yep. Yeah, and I guess that more towards like the 90s became this multi-layer ball. Um, and it's kind of, but yeah, I mean, the one that it is essentially looking the same is probably from about the 60s once they put that Sterling
Yeah,
coat around it.
that's right. I think I still have some balls from the 60s in my bag.
Oh yeah.
you know,
There
it's the sustainable principle of golf ball manufacturing. You hit one into the native area, into the woods, and then you're like, "Hey, I found three
oh
more."
yeah,
And
yeah,
you
yeah. It
never
turns
know
out
how old those suckers are.
yeah, there's some interesting videos online of people like cutting into some of these old golf balls. Like even before, I think when it was that solid core one, maybe it was in the 60s, might have been a little, probably the 60s ones. There was some that had these different cores, and they were things like alkali, right? Like stuff
Hmm.
that's like
Yeah.
caustic. So you'd have kids
Yes.
that would cut into them, and then they would like some that had instances of getting in people's eyes, and caustic things is bad for eyes. You have to wash it length of time, and it could do damage. Like there was a lot of this stuff that was just focused solely on making you be able to go further. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, it could be
That's right.
disastrous if it lands in your skin or eyes.
That's right. Interesting. Yeah. So jumping into the sourcing and kind of understanding what gets sourced in the manufacturing of a golf ball. Tom, you won't be too surprised to find the modern golf ball is all about oil.
Okay.
Don't eat it. You could
Yeah.
eat it. I'm guessing you could eat it. These might be
Chew it.
food grade.
Yeah.
Yeah, chew it. Yes, exactly. But it's the story of the modern golf ball. It's nearly 100% oil. So you mentioned that we went from the world of wood and leather, feather stuffed leather pouches into kind of these multi-layered composites that make a modern golf ball. So the construction of a golf ball can be anywhere from 2 to 5 layers, with the innermost layer being the core. So think about we use these descriptors the same way we talk about the earth. So you've got this core that's really the engine, and as you said, that kind of went from wood to feather to kind of other synthetic materials, rubbers and guttas and all those other sorts of things. Nowadays, this thing is synthetic rubber, which is commonly known as butadiene. So that's going to be the majority of what makes up your golf ball is this core. And I found it interesting. They can make golf balls different densities and different weights by basically taking that polybutadiene core, which you can mold into different shapes, but they inject different levels of this component called zinc diacrylate.
Hmm.
And think of zinc diacrylate. And you might know, like, zinc dioxide they use as filler in paints and any number of modern things that we use and touch today. Think of zinc diacrylate as kind of a heavy filler inside of a golf ball. And the more of it you put in, the heavier the golf ball gets, the more dense it gets. The less you put in, the lighter it is. So they can kind of tune up and tune down the weight of a golf ball based upon how much of this zinc diacrylate they inject into the polybutadiene core. On the outside of that main core layer, you have, again, we're back to the Earth analogy, you have a mantle. And
Hmm.
if you think of the core as being the engine, it gives the weight, it gives kind of the oomph to the flight of the ball. The mantle is really what gives you the fine tuning on that engine. So these are all various thermoplastic materials. So again, all based in oil production, but you can make any number of different types of thermoplastics, and they have different characteristics to them, and those different characteristics then allow you to fine tune how the ball flies, how it spins, how it reacts to impact on the head of your golf club. And it's in this mantle layer that you can have 2, 3, 4 different types of materials that you can use to fine tune that performance of your ball. And then on the outside of the mantle, you've got the cover. And it's only here that we start to build in those dimples. It's the cover itself that provides that shape and provides the substrate to hold those dimples. And there are really, it's probably an oversimplification, but there are really two primary types of covers. There's a urethane cover, which is a lot softer and it's a lot more expensive. And it allows, like, the way that it was described is it's less durable, but it has superior spin rates, and you can use it with irons and wedges and get a lot of control. So golfers who are advanced, not me, and golfers who are more kind of professional or in orientation tend to use these softer, more expensive premium multi-layer balls based upon urethane. You mentioned the other cover material, Surlyn, which is, it's called an ionomer. Basically, it's a plastic that they infuse ions into, and it can be much more durable, much harder. It's resistant to cuts, but by that same token, because it's more durable, it doesn't produce as much spin. It's a little bit more of a, call it a straightforward ball. And these balls that feature Surlyns or other ionomers tend to be two-piece in construction. There might be a few multi-layers to them, but they're not as fine-tuned. They're kind of just a more straightforward ball, and they're much more affordable. To give you an idea of what affordable means, a ball with these ionomer covers, the cheaper ones, can be anywhere like around $2.50 per ball that for you to purchase. Whereas the professional advanced urethane softer balls, those tend to be closer to about $4. So not quite twice as much, but kind of in that ballpark. So that is the sourcing behind the various components that make up a golf ball. Now you might say, where do these raw materials come from? And it's interesting. I think in some of our previous episodes, Tom, we've really seen that a lot of this stuff comes out of Asia, primarily out of China. But what's interesting in this case, I would say, it's still the case that most of these chemical raw materials come out of Asia and out of China, but there's a much greater proportion of these that can be manufactured in Europe, can be manufactured in North America, because they are viewed to be specialty materials. A lot of them kind of patented, trademark, brand named sorts of materials. And one of the things that I found fascinating, you take the kind of the greater percentage of raw materials that are made potentially in the US. Now you also have an incredibly higher percentage of manufacturing of the final product, the golf ball itself, putting all those raw materials, putting all those layers one on top of the other. A lot of that happens in the US, and I would say a majority of it happens in the US, and it seems like there's a golf ball manufacturing hub in and around New England in Massachusetts. Pretty interesting.
Interesting.
Yeah. So if
I
we
wonder what
look
leads
at
to Massachusetts being the go-to for golf ball manufacturing.
I'm guessing it's history, probably.
Yeah, as
It's one
golf
of the
ball
things.
as it is for golf balls, right? It's all about the history.
Yeah, yeah, and I'll tell a couple of stories that are interesting. I'm a member of a country club here in Pittsburgh, and it's the oldest country club in Pittsburgh, founded in 1895. The guy who brought golf to Western Pennsylvania was was first exposed to golf in Massachusetts. And you think about a lot of the sports, not just golf history, but sports history seems to be New England based. A fair amount of it up in New England. So I think that a lot of the sports companies, that manufacture various balls, various rackets, they tend to be clustered in and around the Northeast. And I would think that because there's so much specialty material and so much R&D that goes into the creation of something so highly engineered as a golf ball, you think about stuff you can ship off to a low-cost country, that's the commodity stuff. This is less of a commodity. So I think it just makes a ton of sense that some of this stuff sticks around.
Yeah, it stays somewhat niche, but I mean that niche is quite large. But
Yeah,
yeah, that's
that's
interesting
right.
to be so focused around one little area.
Yeah, that's right. So when you break down kind of at the highest level what goes into the cost of your golf ball, manufacturing costs are, you might think that that's the biggest. It's not. It's kind of a close second. Manufacturing costs make up, call it 20 to 30% of the cost that goes into your ball. What do you think that number one cost is that goes into your ball?
You said manufacturing is not. Is that what you said?
Yeah, manufacturing, which includes kind of raw material, labor, and overhead. Let's lump all the supply chain costs into one. If that's like a third of the cost of your ball, what is the number one cost driver and why your golf balls are so expensive?
I mean, I have two, so I'm gonna say R&D. Alan, is it R&D?
Yeah, that's a really good guess. R&D is about half of that, so
Okay.
it's still a sizable portion. 10 to 15% of it's in R&D. I'll put you out of your misery and out of your suspense, Tom. Marketing, advertising, and endorsements.
Yeah,
You
paying
talk about people
DeChambeau and
wearing.
Tiger
That's
Woods, right?
it. Yeah, that's it. That is as much or more than the cost of the manufacturing, and then it depends on where you put distribution and retail markup. That can be a big part of it, but in essence, that marketing, advertising, endorsements, that's a huge bucket on the costs here. And to look at it, you typically buy golf balls either by the sleeve or by the dozen. A premium set of golf balls will retail for $50 or $60, and the estimated material cost that goes into that is something like $6 to $12 just for the materials. So we're back to kind of this notion of the sourcing. $6 to $12 go into that, and if you kind of think about the pie chart of the breakdown of that, what costs the most? Well, you might think the core costs the most, and it does. It's by mass, it's probably 95% of the ball itself is the core material, but it's a relatively inexpensive material. It only makes up about half the cost of the raw materials that go into a golf ball. It really is these cover materials, the urethanes or the surlins, the highly engineered thermoplastics on the outside that tend to really drive the cost. That's a full third of the cost of a golf ball. And then the rest, kind of the mantle layers, the things that give you the fine tuning, those make up 15 to 20% of the total cost. So I thought it was quite interesting when you think about the breakdown of a golf ball. The core material might be 35 cents. The cover material is almost 30 cents, and then the mantle layers end up being like 10 cents. And then there's some other things, the pigments and the additives and the coatings that go in there. But, it costs something like, from a raw material perspective, about 75 cents that go into that $2.50, $4 ball that you buy retail.
Yeah, that's a really good breakdown. Yeah, so
Yeah,
they have 300,
it's
I guess
interesting.
not 300% markup, but 300% over their raw materials is what they probably, what, three-quarters of that goes into marketing and a portion of that R&D, and then the rest is
Yeah,
profit.
it's probably that's probably about it. There's a fair amount. On top of the raw materials, you've got the overhead and the manufacturing and so forth. So that's easily a third. I'd say another. If you want to just roughly think of markup numbers, say a third goes into the production distribution, a third goes into the marketing and the endorsements,
Mm-hmm.
and a third goes into R&D. That's it overstates R&D a little bit, but in these highly engineered materials like a golf ball, there's still, I believe, a fair amount of engineering that goes in.
Yeah. I'd imagine those endorsement deals are getting more and more and more and more expensive too, because
Yeah,
it seems as if golf, maybe it's not so much since, but like I feel like you had Tiger Woods, you had the Tiger Woods moment, but then you had like Live Golf got a lot of attention, and I'm not sure how
big
many
time.
people watch that, but the like female golfing has been more popular over the past 10 years. And then just like YouTube, is it Deschambeau? Is that the one guy? Like
Yeah,
he's all over
Bryson.
YouTube.
Bryson. He's all over YouTube.
Yeah.
As a matter of
And
fact,
fun to
about
watch.
2 weeks ago, and fun to watch. Yeah, he's doing a whole bunch of different things with his length of his clubs and
Hmm.
style of swing. You might find this interesting. This is not bragging. It's just an interesting fact. With my two of my sons, I volunteered I'm volunteering at the U.S. Open, which is happening all this week. And yesterday was day one, first day practice round Monday, and I was there with my youngest son Joe, and we were on tee box 17,
Hmm.
hole number 17. Bryson hit three balls, reached the green on this short par four, reached the green off the tee box
No, really?
every time. Yeah, I mean it's just amazing to watch him.
Did he hit the green
It's quite
too?
a Oh yeah, no, he was
Oh
on.
my
He
gosh.
hit the green and was on the green, and
Unbelievable.
that's part of what makes this U.S. Open's being played at Oakmont. I think it's the ninth time it's being played at Oakmont. It's considered to be the hardest course in America and one of the top five hardest courses in the world.
Oh, really?
And oh yeah, and it's a constant mousetrap battle between the groundskeepers and the golfers. They just try and make it nearly impossible, and it was fun watching. They've got probably 6 or 7 inch rough just off of the fairways, and when the ball disappears in there, you're never going to find it. It's
Oh,
just
yeah. How is that? It's
they've got
real rough.
they've got oh, it's real rough. They got they have specialized equipment that the whole purpose of it is to dry the rough out and raise the grass so that it doesn't fall over, so that it makes it
Oh, no
harder
way.
to
Give it like,
harder, so it
what
steps the
was that?
ball easier. Yeah, I
What was
mean it's
that?
like
Remember they had
better
that haircut
better
thing?
mousetrap.
The haircut thing that was like, it
Yeah,
was kind of like, was
the
vacuum it up
Flowbee,
and then cut. What was
the
it called?
Flowbee, the Flowbee.
The Floby. Yeah, it's like a Floby for a golf course.
Yes, yeah, it's basically what they're doing. It's a lot of fun. So that's happening here in Pittsburgh this weekend.
That's
If you're at
exciting.
all interested in watching, Sunday is the big championship day. You might see one of us out there on hole number 17.
I'll
So
keep an eye out.
yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah,
All right.
the one just on the golfing in general, and just saying how like Deschambeau hits it in one shot, as probably does Rory and these other folks, right? That's kind of like
Yeah.
for any other person, you're lucky if you're 10 yards off chipping it up for it to land on the green.
My gosh. Yep.
Yeah, they just like drive it to there and have it spin back. It's you don't until you start trying to play, not even play, but like trying to play, even at a golf range, you don't realize how hard it is what they do. It's
Yeah.
so cool. It makes it so much cooler to watch.
It really does. All right, let's jump into, in our last few minutes here, let's jump into kind of the category manager's mindset. If you are a real life category manager, Tom. I just play one on TV, but let's put our category manager hats on. How would you think about sourcing of these materials? Let's say that you wake up tomorrow, you're given you're the category manager at Titleist who's given raw materials. What's the first thing you're going to do?
Yeah, I mean, there's a few. So, and I don't know the answers to these, so they're questions I would ask Alan. But it's, are we sole sourced, or are there other companies that maybe have they gone generic? Right, they had that DuPont material. Sounds pretty old, and it sounds like a pretty high percentage of their overall ball. Right, that outside layer.
That's right.
Sounds like there's opportunity there, and then maybe other areas to find other companies, other suppliers that can support you. But I would start everywhere as I always start. You look at the overall spend, you sort it,
Yep.
you go to the top,
Yep.
and then you see where it is we're spending the most money, and then have conversations with the business unit to understand what
Big time.
are the what are other areas outside of cost that we care about, because there could be lower dollar spend items that maybe just have a pretty darn good deal. The supplier doesn't totally understand like how much they have you over a barrel, and you can just also mitigate other areas. There might be other areas that could be one point of failure that you may need to help address that reduces a lot of the risk. So that's where I always start. It's the cost and the risk. So sourcing folks, you
Yep.
lead with savings, but you also can tell stories around risk and raising things up that execs might not know about. So there's the two areas I would start, and then I would go from there, Alan.
I like that. Yeah, I think especially important, get to know the product people, get to know the engineers who are doing the R&D, go and talk to them and understand, okay, what new materials are you looking at? What materials might that imply we're going to be sourcing less of today, but we might be sourcing a lot more of in the next decade or two. So you could start to understand where those supply chains are, where those manufacturing facilities are, start to develop those supplier relationships. And I think it's interesting. I've always found you get a lot of mileage out of digging into your supply chain and then going and talking when you have let's say you've got a particular supplier like DuPont who provides you one of these highly engineered thermoplastics that go into the mantle. Spend some time with their team and say, hey, what new materials are your crack scientists coming up with in the lab today, so that you can bring back to your company the engineers don't tend to be the most outgoing, extroverted people in the world. So they're not necessarily going out and saying, hey, what you got in the lab? But the procurement people, can oftentimes be that bridge to find the new innovative materials and bring those back. So you really pump up you take your R&D to the next level. I think I'd also want to look at that angle.
Yeah, so it's also about what's the company I work for? What do they care about? That's an important question to ask yourself. And within the golf balls, to your point, call it a quarter of the cost goes into raw material manufacturing and all these things. So maybe 10-15% was the raw materials. The output of what they need to have needs to be perfect, right? So that ball, when someone picks it up at whatever the Titleist Pro Shop or wherever you are, either at the golf club or your local golf place, it needs to be perfect. It needs to have gone through all this quality testing, and they don't want to have issues. You could play with probably a golf ball, like we were joking, Alan. You could find in your backyard, even if you don't think someone would have chipped back there at any point. Somebody probably did, right? So you can find golf balls that are from the early days of the timelines that we went through. So that perfection is really important. So you really need to have the high quality. And there's also areas to have conversations about who's not hitting that mark on quality, because they may have been using a supplier for a long time because they were always great. And maybe management changed, and maybe they're not providing the same product. And you want to make sure that that's still delivered. And then savings can come through those opportunities as well, just because you're introducing some competition to that market.
I love that. I love that idea. That's always the right way to go. Don't assume you have the best suppliers unless you're constantly testing the market. It's always a good rule of thumb. Yeah. All right. What do you say, Tom?
Yeah, I think we're all right there, Alan. I think it's good.
Good. On behalf of your humble hosts here at the Rebuild Procurement Podcast, we are Tommy Finn, the guy who puts the fin in finance, and your OG in procurement, Alan Veek, hoping that you will make this a powerful and productive week in procurement. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Show me, and you won't hear the word rebuild.